His wife said, "I don't love him anymore. If he vanished before my birthday, that'd be the best gift ever." And he vanished. To be honest, Claire, I don't love him anymore. If he vanished before my birthday, that'd be the best gift he could ever give me. Those were the venomous words Savannah Collins whispered to her friend on the phone, unaware that her husband was standing in the hallway, listening to every syllable of her betrayal. She had no idea the man she just disrespected was already planning to grant her wish and give her the kind of birthday gift she would never forget. What happened next will make you question everything you think you know about love, pride, and revenge. Viewers, what would you do if you overheard your wife saying those words? Would you confront her, or quietly grant her heart's desire? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The evening light slid through the tall windows, touching everything in the Collins house with a honey-colored calm that didn't belong there. Jack turned his key, eased the door open, and stepped inside quietly. He had come home 2 days early. Work had finished ahead of schedule, and for once he wanted to surprise his wife. He imagined her startled smile, the small gasp she used to give when joy caught her off guard. But before he could call her name, her voice floated from the living room, smooth, amused, careless. "I'm telling you, Claire, I don't even love him anymore," she said. "If he just vanished before my birthday, that would be the best gift I could ever get." There was laughter on the phone. Savannah's joined it, light and genuine, the kind that used to make him feel lucky. He stood still in the hallway, the wheels of his suitcase resting against the rug. Her words didn't echo, they sank. Every syllable was measured, deliberate, and they landed somewhere behind his ribs where surprise turned quickly into something colder. She went on, oblivious. "He's sweet, but that's the problem. Too safe. He plans everything. I want something unpredictable for once. I swear, Claire, if he just disappeared for a while, I'd finally breathe." Jack exhaled slowly through his nose, steadying the tremor that wanted to show in his hands. He watched the light flicker across the wedding picture hanging by the door. The two of them in Mexico, sunburned and laughing, her hair tangled by the sea wind. He remembered how proud he'd felt that day, certain he'd done one thing right in life. He pushed the door open farther. "Savannah." She turned, startled. Her wine glass clinked against the table. "Jack, you're home? Flight got in early." He smiled as if nothing in the world had cracked. "You should have called. I'd have come for you." He shrugged. "Wanted to surprise you?" She smiled, the kind that didn't touch her eyes. "You did." She tapped her phone screen, ending the call. "I was just going over final details for next week. You know how crazy birthdays get." "I do." He set his suitcase beside the couch, scanning the brochures scattered across the table. Floral arrangements, catering quotes, an email from a ballroom downtown. "You've been busy." "Someone has to be," she said lightly, pouring more wine. "You work too much." He sat across from her, elbows on his knees, and watched her. The rhythm of her movements, uncaring, rehearsed, told him more than her words ever could. She didn't even notice the silence stretching between them. "You'll like it," she said finally. "It's going to be elegant. Gold accents, soft lighting, a live band. Claire says it'll be the best one yet." "I'm sure it will." His tone was even, almost gentle. "Don't sound so formal," she teased. "You're supposed to be excited." He nodded once. "I'll make sure it's unforgettable." She smiled, misreading him completely. When she left the room to take another call, Jack leaned back in the chair and stared at the wine swirling in her glass. It caught the last of the sunlight, shimmering red and cruelly calm. His reflection wavered there, faint, dissolving. Later, the house went quiet. Savannah had gone to bed early, her laughter still faintly echoing down the hallway from her last phone conversation. Jack sat alone at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee cooling beside him. The digital clock on the oven blinked 11:42 p.m. He opened his briefcase and took out a small leather notebook. The pages were filled with lists, projects, schedules, budgets. Order had always been his way of keeping peace. But tonight his handwriting looked foreign, like something written by someone who'd already left. He turned to a fresh page and wrote a single line across the top. He looked toward the dark hallway where her perfume lingered faintly in the air. She was asleep, dreaming, unbothered. He realized he wasn't angry, not yet. He was simply done being the man she pitied. The refrigerator hummed softly. Outside, the city thinned into silence. Jack folded the notebook shut, placed it back inside his case, and sat there a long time without moving, watching the shadow of the window blinds crawl across the floor. By the time the clock struck midnight, the calm on his face had hardened into resolve. The light in the kitchen dimmed, and he whispered to the quiet room, not as a threat, but as a fact already set in motion. She wants me gone. Let's see how she lives without me. He turned off the lamp. Upstairs, the house breathed around her while he lay awake beside her, eyes open, counting the hours between now and the morning when his kindness would end. The morning light came soft through the curtains, brushing the floor where Jack's shoes still sat neatly beside the bed. Savannah stirred, half asleep, murmuring about the cake tasting scheduled for later. He answered her with a quiet hum, already dressed, already thinking somewhere else. The coffee machine hissed downstairs. He watched the dark liquid rise in the cup, the same way he watched everything now, carefully, from a distance. The silence between them wasn't new, but this time it had shape. It was intention. She walked in, her robe tied loosely at the waist, phone in hand. Claire says the decorator might need another deposit. Can you send it? He nodded. I'll handle it. Savannah poured herself orange juice, talking about invitations, the playlist, what shade of gold would best flatter her skin tone under soft lighting. Jack listened. Every sentence she spoke layered itself like another brick on a wall he no longer planned to climb. He finished his coffee, set the cup down, and left for work. His office overlooked a stretch of downtown Dallas where the heat shimmered above the asphalt. He stood by the window longer than usual, watching the city pulse. People moving, cars stopping, lights changing. It reminded him of how easily things carried on after endings. By noon, he called the florist and doubled the order for her arrangements. He called the caterer, paid the balance. To anyone else, it would have looked like devotion, but each transaction was another thread in his quiet design. He wanted no argument later about who owned what, who had paid. At his desk, he wrote her name on a yellow notepad. Beneath it, he wrote, 7 days. He tore the page off and folded it into his wallet. That evening, she was on the couch with her laptop propped against her knees, rerunning a highlight reel of party inspiration videos. You think I should go with a live sax player or a DJ? She asked. Whatever feels right, he said, his tone calm, even kind. You never have an opinion anymore. He smiled faintly. Maybe I trust your taste, she laughed, mistaking it for affection. Finally, something we agree on. He watched her profile under the lamplight. There had been a time when that sight softened him, when he'd have crossed the room just to brush his fingers across her hair. Now it only reminded him of what performance looked like when it forgot the script. When the house went still that night, he sat at his desk again. The glow of the screen turned his reflection into something ghostly. He began transferring documents, business contracts, property files, insurance policies, out of joint folders into private storage. The small motions were quiet but deliberate, like untying a knot one thread at a time. He reached for his phone and scrolled to his brother's number. Michael Collins, Austin. He typed a message. Need a place to cool my head for some weeks. Can I crash at your place? The reply came 5 minutes later. Always. Jack set the phone face down and leaned back, eyes closed. The air in the room felt heavy with memory, her laughter downstairs from earlier, the faint scent of her perfume still hanging in the vents. It had all become noise. 2 days later, Savannah's excitement was electric. She floated through the house in new heels, testing her birthday outfit in the mirror. Everyone's talking about this party, she said over breakfast. Even Tyler called to ask if he should bring extra champagne. Jack stirred his coffee. Invite whoever you want. I already did. She smiled. You don't mind, do you? Not at all. He picked up his phone and, while she talked, sent an email to his lawyer. The subject line was simple. Finalized draft. I'll sign before Friday. Savannah's voice carried on in the background, light, unaware, perfectly content in her own reflection. He watched her for a moment, her hair falling over one shoulder, the way she adjusted her necklace, every gesture rehearsed for an audience that wasn't him. He thought, she wanted freedom. I'll give her an ending that feels like one. That night, when she fell asleep, he opened his suitcase. Only half full, but ready. He checked the envelope again, the note folded inside, his handwriting steady and unhurried. Then he slipped it into the inner pocket of his jacket, zipped the case shut, and left it by the door. In the dim hallway light, he stood for a moment listening to the soft hum of the refrigerator and the steady rhythm of her breathing from upstairs. It was all so normal, almost peaceful. He realized that was what made it perfect. The next sunrise would look the same as every other, only this time it would lead to something she couldn't undo. He turned off the light and went to bed, eyes open until morning. The house was warm with late sunlight when Savannah stepped out, her heels sharp against the tiles, her scent trailing through the hallway. When she finally left for the salon, the air in the house shifted. The faint slam of the front door and the echo of her heels faded down the driveway, leaving behind a silence that felt earned. Jack stood at the window until her car disappeared beyond the hedge, then reached for his phone and called his best friend. He spoke quietly, telling him to come over at once. The house felt different already. Still hollow, ready to be emptied. He went upstairs and pulled his suitcase from under the bed. The shirts and papers he had folded earlier waited on the dresser. He placed them neatly inside, added his laptop in a small leather folder, then zipped the bag shut. When he came down, the doorbell rang once. His friend stood there, eyes searching his face, but Jack only stepped aside to let him in. They carried the suitcase out together, the thud of each step on the porch floorboards marking the start of something that had no return. They loaded the bag into the back seat of his car, and Jack brushed the dust from his hands. He handed over the house keys. Tomorrow, he said quietly. At 6 in the evening. She'll be gone to the hall by then. Bring the locksmith and the 2 men I paid. Change every lock, doors, gates, garage, and remove everything that belongs to her. I want it outside before she gets back. His friend nodded. No questions asked. The plan had the precision of a blueprint, every piece already set in place. Jack gave him an envelope with cash and a list of names for confirmation. Once you're done, he said, send me a text. They stood for a moment beside the truck, the late afternoon heat pressing against them. The house behind them looked calm, unaware of what waited for it. Jack turned toward it once, his eyes tracing the clean lines of the porch, the curtains she'd picked, the life they'd built. Then he looked away. I'll handle the rest from Austin, he said finally. His friend nodded again and climbed into his SUV. The engine started, low and steady. Jack watched him pull away, then walked to his own car, unlocked the door, and slid behind the wheel. The drive south was long and silent. The highway stretched out beneath the sun, the landscape flattening to a wash of pale color. He didn't turn on the radio. The road noise filled the silence with a rhythm that calmed him more than music ever could. Every mile between him and Dallas felt like air returning to his lungs. He reached his brother's house by dusk. The porch light was already on, and the faint smell of coffee drifted through the open kitchen window. He carried the suitcase inside and went straight to the guest room. Without turning on the overhead light, he opened his laptop at the small desk by the window. The screen's glow was cold and sharp. He began sending the cancellation emails one by one. The ballroom, the caterer, the decorator, the florist, the band. Each message brief, polite, final. Within minutes, confirmations began to arrive. Refund approved. Processing initiated. The rhythm of the replies filled the inbox until it became background noise. When he finished, he scrolled through them once more, then shut the laptop. He sent one final text to his friend. "Don't forget tomorrow. 6 sharp." The reply came immediately. Already arranged. He set the phone face down on the desk and looked out the window. The night air outside was calm, the trees moving gently in the wind. Somewhere behind him, the faint scent of coffee lingered, familiar and grounding. He breathed in once, slow and even, then exhaled. Back in Dallas, Savannah would be sitting under a hairdryer, laughing about her party, about how this year would finally be hers. She didn't know that her laughter had already become part of his silence, and that by the time she cut the cake tomorrow, everything she called her life would be waiting for her on the front lawn. Back in Dallas, Savannah was sitting beneath a dryer, her reflection shining in the wide salon mirror. She was telling the stylist about her dress, about the champagne, about how her friend said this party would mark the beginning of her best year yet. When she drove home later, the house was dark, the driveway empty. The lights were off, his shoes gone from their place by the door, his coat missing from the rack. She stood for a moment at the threshold, taking in the quiet, and then smiled faintly to herself. Her wish had come true sooner than expected. She climbed the stairs humming, her mind already fixed on tomorrow's celebration, never noticing the small space his absence left behind. The morning of her birthday came bright and calm. The neighborhood still slept while the sky turned pale gold over Dallas. Jack's brother's house was quiet. The smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen. Jack sat at the small desk by the window, laptop open, his eyes fixed on the list of refund confirmations that had come in overnight. Each message began the same way. "Dear Mr. Collins, your cancellation has been processed." He read them one by one, his face giving nothing away. He picked up his phone and sent a single text to his friend in Dallas, one line, short and direct. "Make sure the locks are changed before noon." The reply came almost immediately. "Already arranged." He set the phone aside, leaned back, and let the quiet fill the room. Outside, the wind stirred the branches of the oak tree, the sound steady and low. He had done everything that needed to be done. There was no guilt, only the clear, heavy stillness that comes after a decision is complete. Back in Dallas, Savannah woke late, stretching lazily beneath the soft white sheets. The first thing she noticed was the emptiness beside her, but it didn't bother her. She smiled faintly. The space on his pillow was cool, the kind of emptiness she'd started to crave. For the first time in months, she felt light. She moved through the morning humming under her breath, coffee in hand, checking messages from friends who were already sending early birthday wishes. Her phone kept buzzing, Claire confirming her dress, Tyler joking about the party, someone asking if Jack would be there. She typed quickly, "No, he's out of town. It's just me tonight." She took her time dressing, curling her hair, reapplying lipstick until the reflection in the mirror matched the version of herself she liked best. By 5 p.m., she was ready. The silver dress she'd picked shimmered softly as she moved. The perfume lingered like confidence. Her friend pulled up in the driveway just as Savannah fastened her earrings. "You look perfect," Claire said when she opened the door. Savannah laughed. "It's going to be a night to remember." They drove through the heart of Dallas, music playing low, the city glowing as dusk settled in. When they reached the event hall, Savannah's excitement rose. From a distance, the building looked alive with lights. But as they got closer, her smile faltered. The parking lot was half full, but the people walking in weren't familiar. There was no banner, no floral arch, no welcome sign. She stepped out, the wind lifting a strand of hair against her cheek. "This can't be right," she murmured. Inside the lobby, a woman at the front desk looked up from her clipboard. "Can I help you?" "Yes," Savannah said, her voice steady but tight. "The Collins birthday party, Ballroom B. I booked it a week ago." The woman scanned the list and shook her head. "Ballroom B was released this morning. It's been reassigned for a corporate event." Savannah blinked. "That's impossible. My husband..." She stopped. He paid for everything. I'm sorry, ma'am, the woman said. The reservation was canceled. Refund issued to the account on file. For a moment, Savannah couldn't move. Behind her, Claire shifted awkwardly, glancing at the people gathering down the hallway in suits and name badges. The sound of laughter floated toward them, someone else's celebration. Then, as if the evening had waited for its cue, a courier entered through the glass doors, holding a manila envelope. Mrs. Collins? He asked. She turned, breath catching. Yes. He handed her the envelope, had her sign, and walked away before she could ask a question. Her hands trembled as she tore it open. Inside were divorce papers and a single handwritten note. The ink was dark, the handwriting unmistakably his. You said if I vanished, it would be the best birthday gift you could get. Happy birthday. The note slipped from her fingers. The edges of the room blurred as she stood there unmoving, the sounds around her distant and wrong. Claire called her name, but she didn't answer. The night she had built piece by piece had fallen apart in a single sentence. Savannah left the hall fast, her heels clattering on the concrete as she gripped the edge of her dress. The street lights blurred through the windshield as she drove, her pulse loud in her ears, the envelope still open on the passenger seat. Every word he'd written burned through her. The cold precision of it, the calm cruelty that didn't need to shout. When she turned into the driveway, the beam of her headlights caught something that made her foot slam the brake. Her suitcases were lined neatly by the gate, boxes stacked beside them, her dresses folded in transparent garment bags. The sight stunned her. The porch light glowed over everything she owned. She got out slowly, the gravel crunching under her shoes. The night air was sharp, carrying a faint smell of rain. She tried the door, twisting the key hard, but the lock didn't move. She tried again, slower, pressing her weight against it. Nothing. The lock had been changed. Her chest tightened. She pulled out her phone and dialed his number. He answered on the second ring. For a moment, she couldn't speak. All she could hear was the low hum of his breathing on the line. Then his voice came, calm and clear. Hope you enjoyed the birthday gift you wanted. Before she could respond, the call ended. The screen flashed. Call failed. He'd blocked her. The silence that followed was deep enough to feel. She stood there in the driveway surrounded by her life in boxes, the night pressing in. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked once and went quiet. She loaded the luggage into the trunk, her movements jerky, mechanical. She didn't think, just acted. Keys, ignition, motion. She drove toward Claire's house, the same street she'd driven countless times for brunches and parties. When her friend opened the door, Savannah tried to speak, but the words tangled. Claire stepped outside, eyes wide, hesitant. Sav, it's late, she said softly. I can't. Not tonight, Daniel is around. The door closed gently, the latch clicking final. Savannah stood there for a long moment before turning back to the car. She tried 2 more friends, their numbers going unanswered. The third picked up, stammered something about not being home, and hung up. She drove to a hotel near the highway, dragging her suitcase to the counter under the bright, sterile light. The clerk asked for her card. She slid it forward, watching the small screen blink. Transaction declined. She tried another card, the same message. Her throat felt tight as she forced a small laugh. Run it again, she said quietly. The clerk tried, then shook his head politely. I'm sorry, ma'am. She walked back out, the automatic doors hissing closed behind her. The parking lot was empty except for her car under the flickering streetlight. She opened the door, climbed inside, and pulled her coat around her shoulders. The seat felt cold, the air heavy. She sat there staring at nothing, the sound of passing cars washing over her in steady waves. The envelope rested on the passenger seat, his handwriting visible in the dim light. She reached for it, held it once more, then set it aside. As the night deepened, she leaned her head against the window. The glass was cold. The silence was thick. The regret came slow but sure, quiet, relentless, exact. What she had wished for had finally come true. He had vanished. And she had never felt emptier. Every action we take in anger or pride eventually writes its own lesson. Savannah believed her words carried no consequence until the man she disrespected turned them into her reality. Her story reminds us that some wishes once spoken can't be undone, and that silence can be the loudest revenge of all. Do you think Collins was wrong to grant her request? If you were in his shoes, what would you do? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe for more interesting and true-to-life stories.